Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. So next Sunday is a great religious holiday in this country. Super Bowl Sunday. Max was a lifelong football fan, and he had always wanted to go to the Super Bowl. And he finally was able to get a ticket. He saved his money. He gets to the game, and he realizes he has a terrible seat. He's in the very top of the seats, behind the end zone, and he's just feeling defeated by that. And so he's like looking around. He's probably a Unity guy. He's looking for possibility and solution. And he notices down on the 50-yard line, there's an empty seat. And he's like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. He made his way down there, and he walked up. There's an elderly man sitting next to him, and he said, "Is someone sitting here?" He said, "Oh, this is my ticket, but it's yours if you want it. Go ahead and take it." So he sits down. He's on the 50-yard line for the Super Bowl, and he turns to the gentleman. He said, "Why is the seat empty?" He said, "Well, my wife and I, we had a tradition of coming to the Super Bowl for 40 years, and she recently died. And so she's not able to be here." And he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, but didn't you have a friend, a relative, somebody else who would come?" He said, "Well, they're all at the funeral." I know. It's funny, right? You know that's not a true story. It's just a joke. I love that. Thank you, Lyle. Where are you, Lyle? Forget. That was one of the, he sent me that one on email this week. I loved it. My message today is we're all in this together. You know, we look around the world, and not only do we disagree about which football team should win, but it seems like we have increasingly been sort of forced into camps and in opinions, and we're these oppositional, even sort of hate. You know, just those people are not like us if they don't agree with us. And my message today, you know, I've been sharing this intuitive practice where every morning at the end of my meditation and prayer and journaling, I just ask the question, what wants to happen today? And it's really been amazing. And this morning, one of the things that came was encourage the people. And then the second thing came was challenge the people. I'm sorry. Came from God. I have to do it. And it reminds me of the thing Farrellyn used to say, I don't think she originated it, but that our job as ministers is to comfort the afflicted and sometimes to afflict the comfortable. So we're going to start there, and then we'll get to the good stuff. How's that, all right? All right, so there are some things I think we need to be aware of. I'm going to start with some teachings of Jesus. Oh, you think that's not controversial? Just you wait. So Father Richard Rohr says this about the way we follow the teachings of Jesus. He said, "We worshiped Jesus instead of following him on his same path. We made Jesus into a mere religion instead of a journey towards union with God and everything else. This shift has made Christianity into a religion of belonging and believing instead of a religion of transformation." But at Unity, this is the way we have always held Jesus, as our way shower. That he not only came to deliver these beautiful truths, but that he said, you're going to do this too. He said, those who come after me will do yet greater things. That this is the way we are to approach our understanding of his teachings, and the meaning of his life, of his ministry here on earth, is not to make him the great exception, but to make him the great example. So everything I'm about to read comes from that place. The Jewish legal experts were always trying to trip Jesus up, at least as the way the Gospels tell us the story, that the Pharisees, the Sadducees were always trying to make sure he knew his stuff, and this is what happened. And one of these rulers in the law said, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" This is in Matthew 22. And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment, and the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So far, so good. This is from the Hebrew Scriptures, the book of Deuteronomy, where this is the great commandment. You know, there are so many other commandments, like, you shouldn't wear polyester and cotton together. That's a rule. So at least we know God has good tastes, There are all these dietary laws and the ways that we dress and all of these things, but out of those 600 and some laws that an upstanding Jewish man should observe every day, there was this great one that Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and love your neighbor as what? Yourself. So love rules the day. Jesus also said that the way that people are going to know his disciples, his followers, is by love. They will know you by your love for one another. This is what we are to do as followers of Jesus' way, is to love. Matthew 5. This is considered part of the Sermon on the Mount, which even the most skeptical scholars of ancient teachings and writings have said there definitely existed this man. There were Roman records of his execution. He existed, and most likely these are the words that we know he said. Even, like I said, the skeptics would say that. The teaching is a little tougher. Hold on. Matthew 5:43. You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. What do you think about that? Love your neighbor. Okay, I can do that. But not those people. I don't know who those people are for you. I've shared, I have a list. And my work is to always bring that list into the circle of God. Recognize that there are no enemies in God. It's hard. It's hard to not return judgment for judgment. It's hard to not return attack for attack. This is sort of our defense mechanism, our survival mechanism is that we want to, return an eye for an eye, the code of Hammurabi. And what does that leave us? Remove an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We all end up toothless and blind if we keep doing that way. So something else must be called for. And Jesus' teaching of love your enemy, for me, absolutely solidifies the truth that this man from Galilee was a teacher of non-dual reality. When he said, don't judge lest you be judged, with the same measure you judge others, it will be judged unto you. That is a non-dual teaching, that we are one with each other. We are a part of this life of God. We are connected at our deepest level. Beneath the surface level of condition and form, there is spirit, which is the life of us all. And when we harm another, we harm ourselves. Because we are one with each other. Unity is a really cool brand. We love our name, but it's also our theology. Our name means we are one with God and one with all that is. Unity, not duality. Unity. So here's the thing. One more. See how well you guys are. You're hanging with me pretty well so far. We're going to go back to, all this is in Matthew. This is chapter 20. Verse 30, if you're not for me, you're against me. Let's just put this together, shall we? We want to be followers of Jesus. Not necessarily worshipers, but followers. To live in this teaching of non-duality and oneness, of love. Love of God, love of self, love of each other. This is who we want to be. Can I get an amen? Amen. This is who we want to be. And Jesus says, if you're not for me, you're against me. But back in chapter 5,
He said, love your enemy. Wait a minute. You see, if we have an enemy, if we have identified anyone as being other, we are in opposition to the teachings of Jesus. And how many people go around this world, and let's start blaming and making a list right now. All the people who claim to be Christians, but who condemn and judge and cast out because some moral code is not working right for them about the way the people are showing up. You hear what I'm saying? This is a hard teaching, and it is the only teaching. We are not allowed to call ourselves followers of Jesus if we are judging and casting out anyone, everyone. Yes, even that politician that you're all thinking of right now. And it's not the same one. You know this. That woman, that man, is an expression of the power and the beauty and the glory of God. They just forgot. As I forget. As I forget. The power of this teaching is incredible. In A Course in Miracles, Jesus says that it is when we judge and blame that we take ourselves out of the circle of atonement, at one-ment. When I think I found someone else that I'm going to put outside of God's circle, guess where I am? Outside of the circle. And so what is the way back into the circle? What is the way back into reconciliation? Is to recognize, yes, she is also a part of God. An integral, irreplaceable, unique expression of God's heart and life and body. How do we do this? How do we ever hold all of the chaos and the violence and the racism? How do we possibly hold the abuse that we see in our world within the love of God? Well, here's the way we do it. It's not the behavior that we hold as being expressions of God. It is the person. And so we can absolutely stand for unity and oneness and hold everyone in this circle and still say, no, that is not acceptable. You may not do that to me. You may not do that to the children. This is the way that we're able to and it's, boy, is it hard. This is like graduate school spirituality, right? To be able to say, I love you and recognize the oneness that we have with each other, and what you are doing is not acceptable. Theodore Roosevelt had this thing. I thought I put it in here. I guess I didn't. Doesn't matter. He had this quote I read this morning where he said that to hold the president as without blame and give him 100% support is a sin against democracy. Isn't that great? We can love and support our humanity and our common spirituality without saying yes to that. Why do we judge and criticize? Why do we otherize? Why do we make enemies? You know that beautiful teaching that judge not lest you be judged? It's a reciprocal energy, and it works the other way too. We judge because we are judged. I've been reading Matthew Fox's The Hidden Spirituality of Men. We're a lot of energy about getting our men's ministry going again. I'm pretty excited about that. You'll be hearing more about that soon. And this comes from Matthew Fox's, quoting Robert Bly first, that without a fundamental love of life at the center of everything, children learn from infancy that they are being judged. And that judgment restricts every thought, desire, and action. A baby with no language knows when they're being judged. You, as an infant, knew. You felt it. And the unity consciousness was crumbled, was obscured, was shadowed in some way. You felt it. And what does someone who is judged do? They try to survive, try and fit myself into the form you need me to be so everything will be okay, and we judge. Matthew Fox says that without the love of this fundamental love of life, people despair. And despair, as Thomas Aquinas observed, is the most dangerous of all sins. When we are overwhelmed by despair, there are no limits to violence. If we no longer love ourselves, then the admonition to love neighbor as self is meaningless. So here's the problem. We've all been judged and found wanting, and we want to just judge right back, but the solution is here. Is to recognize that beneath all judgments, beneath every failure, I am loved, I am worthy, and never has it been otherwise. Julian of Norwich, one of the most amazing women in the Christian, and next month we're doing women in their contributions to spirituality for Women's Month, Women's History Month. But Julian said this, I better get the quote right. Do you know who she was? She was 14th century. She was an anchoress. Oh, I could tell you stories about her. But she says this: God loved us before he made us, and his love has never diminished and never shall. Do you get that? Before you were even in your mother's womb, you were loved by God. There's nothing that will ever change that fact that you are precious to the one. And that is the key to healing our separation. It's not out there, it's in here. This is where we do the work, by reconciling ourselves to the power and the love and the presence of God, releasing everything that stands in the way of it. But Pastor, you don't know how hard it's been. You're right. I don't know your story, and I don't know the blocks that have been placed between you and returning to your native state of being loved by God for all time. I don't know what they are. I know what mine are. I know what Howard Thurman's were. Do you know Howard Thurman? You hear me talk about him a lot. My favorite quote about purpose, he says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Amazing, amazing man. Came from very little. He rose to be the preacher at Boston University. He was a mentor of Dr. King and many of the other civil rights leaders. In the 1940s, he established a church in San Francisco that was intentionally racially diverse. Incredible. His grandmother was a slave as a child. She had some reasons to otherize. She had been victimized by this world, and she had some reasons to hold people as having done her wrong. I want to read to you a little bit what Howard wrote about his grandmother. The thing I got from her was an enormous respect of the magic that there is in knowledge that came from what she observed as a slave child. Whenever her owner's wife saw her little girl trying to teach my grandmother the alphabet, or 1, 2, 3, she would chastise the child and send her to bed without supper. My grandmother said, I saw there must be some magic in knowing how to read and write. Occasionally, when she was in an expansive mood, she would talk about her life as a slave on the plantation in North Florida. And 2 of those stories I never tired of. The first, sometimes the plantation's owner's minister would be permitted to hold a service for the slaves. And he always preached from the same text, slaves, be obedient to your masters, for this is right in the Lord. My grandmother said that she made up her mind then and there that if she ever learned to read, or if freedom ever came, she would never read that part of the Bible. So all the years I was growing up and had the job of reading the Bible to her every day, I could never read any of the letters of Paul, except now and then the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Maybe this experience unconsciously influenced my thought when I wrote the book, Jesus and the Disinherited. My grandmother's second story is even more important to me, but in a different way. She would talk about the times when a slaver preacher was permitted to hold services for the slaves of her masters and all the neighboring plantations. A slave preacher, is what that is. I don't remember how often this happened, but that when it happened, it was all tremendously important, and And then my sister and I would be very still because we didn't know when she was going to tell us this. His grandmother would say, it didn't matter what the text was, the minister always ended up at the same place. He would stand up, start very quietly, and look around to all of us through the room, and he would say, you are not slaves. You are not the N-word. You are God's children. And you know, when my grandmother said that part to us, she would unconsciously straighten up, head high and chest out, and a faraway look would come on her face. And she transferred that to me, Howard Thurman writes. There was nothing that could happen in my environment that could ever touch this. It gave me my identity, so I didn't have to wait for a revolution. I have never been in search of identity, and I think the explanation is that everything I've ever felt and worked on and believed was founded in a kind of private, almost unconscious autonomy that did not seek vindication in my environment because it was in me. And this is what I've tried to pass on to my children. We have to have some way to keep from internalizing our environment's negative judgments about us. And as long as I keep the environment external, it cannot control me. But when I internalize it, I am captured. An amazing, inspirational story. In 1947, Howard Thurman founded the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples. It is an interfaith, interracial, intercultural community of seekers dedicated to personal empowerment and social transformation through an ever-deepening relationship with the Spirit of God in all life. I love our diversity in this church. It's the first thing I noticed when Howard invited me to come sing here on a Sunday 12 years ago. Love it. It's unusual to have a church that is visibly diverse and diverse in so many ways. I love it. Some of the African American members of our community have said that they've gotten pushback from their friends and family. Why are you going to that white church? Yeah, I know. Some of you have told me this. We're not a white church. Maybe we were founded by white people. Yeah, we're not. We're not a black church. We're not a straight church. We're not a gay church. We're not an old church. We're not a young church. We're not a church of people who are physically abled or physically disabled. We are a community of seekers. A community of souls seeking to remember and remind each other of the truth of our oneness with God. This is who we are. Beth Nielsen Chapman, a great songwriter, she said, in this world of mass confusion, either side of the battle lines, there are places where love is blooming and where the sun still shines. Come to mine. This is one of those places in the world. In a place of confusion and disaffection and opposition, this is a place where love still shines. And it's my commitment as your leader to keep it thus. There are people who think because we celebrate Black history that we are being run by the liberal left. And there are people who think because we celebrate Veterans Day and Memorial Day, we are puppets of the rabid right. We are here for people. And people to remember the good that they are. Gary, if you wouldn't mind just playing, we'll close with this, and this will be my prayer. This is Ernest Holmes. Just open and receive these words. Find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, an exalted human being. Find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe or of God or of man or of anything else, and you will have brought to me someone in whose presence I may sit, and fear shall vanish as clouds before the light. Find me one person who has redeemed his own soul, and she shall become my redeemer. Find me someone who has given all that she has in love without morbidity, and I will have found the lover of my soul. Is this not true? Because he will have revealed to me the nature of God and proved to me the possibility of all human souls. Find me just one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. So God, we commit ourselves to living in that universe of love, of power, of possibility, and that this community is established as a place of remembering that deep truth that we are one, that we are each called to bring our authentic gift. And so we are healed in this awareness. We release our judgment, we release our condemnation, and we step into the path that Jesus walked before us. Bless everyone within the sound of my voice. May we all rise to live in that light. And so it is. Amen. I don't know what it is that you've been believing about yourself that has kept you small, but it ain't true. It ain't true. And I don't know if anyone has told you today that they love you or not, but I'm standing here today and I'm telling you, I love you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.